Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, March the 18th, 2024. Yesterday, Sunday, there was a conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. This conjunction is still pretty active a day later, and we can still feel its influence. And so I wanted to consider what this conjunction actually means in terms of people's horoscopes. And so what I want to do is I want to look at a few famous or infamous people who have Sun conjunct Neptune and consider how this conjunction might have influenced their lives, or indeed, if they're still alive, be influencing their lives. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, March the 18th, 2024. So here is the horoscope for today. By the way, the pictures on the top right are all pictures of people who have Sun conjunct Neptune. So this is the position of the planets today. I've set it as always for New York, noon today, March the 18th, 2024. So what is going on? What's the main stuff happening? There is still a Sun conjunct Neptune. There it is. There is the Neptune at 2724 Pisces, and there's the Sun at 2033 Pisces. So yes, the Sun-Neptune conjunction is still in force. Many of us might experience this Sun conjunct Neptune as being a time when it may be difficult to apply ourselves in a direct way. I mean, the Sun is often who we are. It's how we assert ourselves. It really is connected with our identity. You know, it's a strong, masculine, positive planet. Yet it's conjunct Neptune, and that is perhaps weakening its force. And so, for many of us, it might be best if we don't try to do things directly. If we want to get things done, it might be best to use an indirect approach. We should also remember that the Sun, while being conjunct Neptune, is moving towards a conjunction with Skeet. Skeet is a star connected with shipwrecks and disasters. The conjunction between the Sun and Skeet is not exact today, but it's still moving towards Skeet. So, we should avoid doing things which have the potential to be disastrous. And we should also avoid getting carried along with things. So easy to do, but we might just, follow the crowd and end up doing something disastrous. So we might be advised then to think for ourselves and always consider the possibility that we've completely misunderstood the situation, and also consider the possibility always that the tide on which we're being swept is a tide that is not necessarily positive. It could be leading us in the wrong direction. Still, on the plus side with Sun conjunct Neptune, it can be quite spiritual. We can get access to, high-level forces, and our psychic abilities should be on relatively good form. So if we get a feeling about something, it's quite possible that that feeling is correct. But it's also quite possible that we've completely misunderstood the situation. So we just need to perhaps observe what's going on and not take the initiative. And maybe tomorrow and the day after we'll get a better idea about whether we've properly understood the situation. And at the same time as that, we have the Moon moving through Cancer. Moon is right in the middle of Cancer. There it is, Moon at 15 Cancer. This is overall fortunate for a number of reasons. Moon is in its own sign in Cancer. the moon is in mutual reception with Jupiter. Moon is in Cancer, is in the exaltation sign of Jupiter. Jupiter in Taurus is in the exaltation sign of the moon. So we have a moon-Jupiter mutual reception by exaltation. And that does mean that we can be quite centered at an emotional level. Yes, there may be a lot of confusing emotional information coming in, but fundamentally we can be grounded. Moon in Cancer is emotionally grounded, and if it's in mutual reception by exaltation with Jupiter, that's going to help even more, because Jupiter's in Taurus. Taurus is sort of a nice place for Jupiter, especially when the moon is in Cancer. So if we don't get caught up by that Sun-Neptune conjunction and the Sun moving on to Skeet, and we just have a certain level of independence, and we don't believe anything we hear, and we have an open mind, then I think for most of us it should be an okay day. There are a couple of midpoints that are perhaps of note. Mars continues to aspect the Venus-Jupiter midpoint. Venus-Jupiter is a very fortunate pair of planets. Venus is a lesser benefic, Jupiter is a greater benefic, and with Mars on Venus-Jupiter, that can be about fortunate activity, being optimistic about something. Now, we don't want to be too optimistic because of the sort of delusion that's intrinsic to the conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. But we perhaps need to be optimistic with an open mind and with a little bit of skepticism. I mean, I know that sounds a bit of a contradiction, but we just need to make sure we're optimistic, but not too optimistic, especially when we are contemplating action. Some of our actions could be actually quite fortuitous, but others not so much. In fact, they could be unfortunate. We have to make the choice. We have to make the decision. And if in doubt, we don't have to do anything. We can maybe wait until tomorrow, because I don't think that this configuration, Mars on the Venus-Jupiter midpoint, it's been around for a couple of days. It will still be around tomorrow. So don't be in a hurry to do something. Tomorrow, the opportunity will, I think, still exist tomorrow. I should say there also are some aspects which I haven't yet covered. There are a couple of deciles and a quintile. Mercury is decile Uranus, and Venus is decile Pluto, and Venus is quintile Uranus. So deciles are about the struggle to create a particular style. So Mercury decile Uranus. So decile, by the way, is a tenth of the circle. So when I say Mercury decile Uranus, you can see there's Mercury, there's Uranus. They are approximately 36 degrees apart. 36, there are 360 degrees in a circle, so 36 degrees is a tenth of a circle, is a decile. So Mercury decile Uranus, the struggle to create an impact, the struggle to be original, the struggle to say something which forces people to sit up and listen. It's a little bit contrived, so don't just say something dramatic just for the sake of it, because it might sound a bit forced. Also, Venus is decile Pluto. There's Venus, there's Pluto. You can see they're approximately 36 degrees apart. So that is the struggle to create a style of intensity, or perhaps the struggle to bring out one's emotions in a powerful way. We're going to be trying hard to do that. Of course, emotions are not really something that one can they're not something that we can create, that we can just use in a very conscious, contrived way. So that might be hard work. So don't try too hard to be emotionally intense today. You can try a bit, but don't go over the top, because it just might not come over right. And it might feel a bit forced. Then we've got Venus quintile Uranus. Quintiles are about style, but they're not like a decile. I mean, a quintile is a 72-degree aspect. So Venus is 72 degrees from Uranus. So that's not a tenth of the circle, it's a fifth of the circle. So it is about style, but there's less force to it. It's less contrived. Still, we want to create a style of excitement, Venus quintile Uranus, especially in relationships. We may feel we have to go out of our way to find something new, or someone new, and it might be a style about style as in how we dress and the words we use and what we look like. And some of us might feel it's important to look in some way striking. Venus is about appearance. It's about beauty. It's about aesthetics. And so with Venus quintile Uranus, some people might be trying to dress in a way that grabs everyone's attention. Will it work? I suppose it depends on the situation. I do want to look at the positions of the planets today from a heliocentric perspective. I'm not saying I'm going to find anything, but I just think as a matter of course, we need to keep track of the heliocentric position of the solar system, which is kind of obvious because the chart I've just looked at is geocentric. If you put the Earth in the middle of things, if you put the Sun in the middle of the things, you get a slightly different picture. So this is the positions of the planets today, but with the Sun in the center, of the solar system, in a way where it should be. So yesterday we had Sun conjunct Neptune geocentrically. So from a heliocentric perspective, Sun conjunct Neptune transitions into Earth conjunct Neptune. Remember, the heliocentric chart, we don't see the Sun, we see the Earth. The Earth is always in the opposite place as the Sun, so the Earth is in late Virgo heliocentrically. And there's no moon, because from the Sun's perspective, the Earth and the moon are in exactly the same place, and there is no ascendant. So we can see the Earth opposition Neptune, reminding us that there's still a lot of confusion around. There's the Earth exactly opposition Neptune. So down here on Earth, things can be a bit chaotic. We're trying to deal with things which are beyond ourselves, and that can be hard work. Mercury is a fast mover. We're used to geocentric Mercury moving no more than 2 degrees in a day, to go to a little bit more than 2 degrees a day. Heliocentric Mercury, on average, moves 88 degrees in 1 year. It can move 6 degrees and more in a day. So Mercury becomes a fast mover, and we can see that Mercury is starting to make a square to Neptune. Now, that Neptune is not exact yet, but what we will be seeing is Mercury starting to form a T-square with the Earth and Neptune. Now, Now, because Mercury is such a fast mover, it's no good me saying, oh, well, tomorrow it might have moved on and made that T-square. In fact, it will make that T-square over the next 24 hours. So effectively, we can see a heliocentric T-square. Earth opposition Neptune and Mercury making the T. And so that will be happening today and tomorrow. It depends on your time zone, but today, tomorrow, Mercury square Neptune square the Earth, and so that is going to create for the world quite a lot of uncertainty. People are not really going to know what they're doing. People are going to say things. They're going to sound very sure of themselves, but they might then realise that they have to back down. So, look at what politicians are saying. Look at the big claims that politicians are making. Chances are they don't really know what they're talking about, or they have to change. They have to change what they say in the light of fresh evidence. And in general, it really is important not to jump to conclusions, because it's just from a heliocentric perspective, it's a time of chaos. It's a time where people just get the wrong ideas, and people can act on the wrong ideas. So I think it could be potentially quite dangerous. And Earth opposition Neptune, we could associate that with chemicals and chemical spills, and we do have to be careful, with, I don't know, in the household, if you've got bleaches and acids and that kind of thing. Be really careful. Don't mess with chemicals. Don't mess with drugs. With Earth opposition Neptune and with Mercury making that square to Neptune. And of course, probably best to stay away from alcohol as well. So that's the heliocentric position today. I think there might be a little bit of cause for concern with that Earth opposition Neptune with Mercury on a T. From a spiritual perspective, well, that's a different matter. We may get some powerful insights, powerful dreams. Perhaps it's a time when we can actually tune into the collective unconscious and gather some very valuable material. Okay, so let me just switch back to the regular chart. Okay, and having looked at the overall picture for today, I want to look at the 12 signs. So here are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Monday, March the 18th, 2024. Aries. Probably Aries, you feel that you want to establish yourself. Establish yourself in the sense of finding somewhere secure where you can put both your feet. You might feel now that, things are a bit up in the air and you're not quite sure what's going on, and maybe you just don't want to get involved in a lot of things. And I think you'd be absolutely right to take that approach. I've just been talking about the Sun conjunct Neptune, and that's going to have an impact on all of us. Okay, it was exact yesterday, but I think we're still feeling it. And from your perspective, sure, the Sun is about to move into your sign. Well, the Sun is actually, Sun is about to move into Aries, but not yet. It doesn't happen till Wednesday. In the meantime, in fact, Tuesday evening, depends if you're in the Americas, depends on your time zone. But in this last couple of days before the Sun moves into Aries, you may feel that it's a time for a bit of preparation and establishing yourself, as in grounding yourself, making sure that you really have got everything covered. Because, yeah, there is a lot of scope for things to go wrong. It needn't go wrong, provided you just pay attention, provided you've got your eyes open. And when you are really grounded, when you really feel secure, it's at that stage that you can start letting your natural optimism out into the open. Because, Aries, you are naturally optimistic, and I think that this natural optimism is very strong at the moment. You can see the opportunities before you. You can see what could go right. But maybe you should just hold off for a day or two before putting your plans into action. Maybe you should wait until the sun moves into Aries. Maybe you should at least wait until tomorrow, because now might not quite be the right time to be doing that kind of thing. Because you are in a situation where some people and the overall environment around you is not entirely secure, and there are certain individuals who may behave in a way that is somewhat troubling, as far as being people trying to influence you. I think there are people out there who'd like you to do things in a particular way through clever arguments. Now, Aries, normally you can hold your own, but today I'm not convinced you can. So if you were to get closely involved with people, really get involved with what they're talking about, what they're suggesting, you may find yourself getting led astray. Maybe you'll have to put up with very powerful arguments. You kind of know the arguments are wrong, but on the surface they make sense, and you might get led into a situation where you do something that you later regret. And this applies not just to people you meet casually today. It might actually apply to people you know very well, people who you might even share your living space with. Those people are going to be persuasive. Now, they might be persuasive for good reason. They might have arguments that not just sound good, but actually are good. But you're not going to know that at the time. And so if someone you trust is suggesting you do something, or starts suggesting you believe something, don't necessarily believe that they know what they're doing. However convincing someone sounds, they might be wrong, and they might not have your best interests at heart. But really, all this can be avoided if you just focus on your priorities. And today, Aries, your main priority is to be somewhere where you are completely secure, where you are completely in control. And once you do that, everything else will flow very naturally, and I don't think that you will come to any harm. Taurus, you're in a pretty good position, I think. You're feeling comfortable. You're able to express yourself very well. And I think you're helped by the fact that the moon is making a mutual reception to Jupiter by exaltation. Jupiter remains in your sign. Jupiter's been in Taurus since, I think, May of last year. And the moon is making a sextile aspect to Jupiter. Moon in Cancer is making a sextile aspect to Jupiter. And the Moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception by exaltation because they're in each other's exaltation signs. And so overall, Taurus, I think that makes you very fortunate today. If you put your mind to something, it can go well. And I think, though, it's just important you do things your way. I mean that it really is the case for everyone, but I think for you, it's really is of great significance that you are able to do your way. Because once you're able to do things your way, things really should be great. Because, Taurus, you have a fundamental sense of your own security. You know when you are secure, you know when you're insecure, and so you just have to make adjustments over the day. You stay in that area, that place where you feel comfortable, and you just keep doing it. And there's no need to go on adventures today. In fact, you should avoid going on adventures. You should stay in places where you know you're on solid ground. And that applies to where you're going. There are places you may want to visit today, and that's fine. But if you are visiting anywhere today, you should probably stick to places that you know and trust. And when I say visit, I suppose I'm primarily referring to sort of short visits, perhaps by car, perhaps by foot, to places where you're comfortable, where you're known, where you don't have to make any great effort to explain yourself. But these visits could be virtual, visiting somewhere on the internet, visiting, I don't know, someone's a chat room or a Zoom meeting. You can internet visits. I suppose if you've got virtual reality, it could be some virtual place, but most of us don't really have virtual reality headsets, do we? But wherever you're visiting, just stick to places that you feel comfortable, and things are going to work out very well for you. And at the same time, Taurus, I believe that you are going to be very persuasive. The things you say will grab people's attention. You will know how to explain yourself, and you will know how to put forward a convincing argument. In one sense, that is a good thing. In another sense, there's a risk. It's possible that you may argue very well for a cause that is actually totally not worthy of supporting. Or it just could be just an argument that's not worthy of supporting. The things you say may be convincing, but fundamentally they could be wrong. So don't be too pleased with yourself if you manage to convince someone to do something, because your advice may not be correct. Perhaps you haven't fully taken into account someone else's world. You've just naturally assumed that you know best. So I suppose, Taurus, I would be wary, if I were you, of being too sure of yourself. You could even be a little bit arrogant. And yes, that self-certainty can make you very powerful, but you need to consider, the moral dimension of it. It's not enough to get your way. You have to get your way, and the world has to benefit from you getting your way. So do make that distinction. Still, if you are absolutely certain you are in the right, really certain, and you have to really analyze the thing. You've got to be sure of yourself. If you are certain you are in the right, then I think there's a very high chance that today you will be able to get your way. Another thing to say is that don't be too keen to put yourself in the center of things, because you do need to consider how other people may be able to make your life better. There are a couple of people who have something to offer. They have an optimistic view of the world, and if you were to listen to them, you might really be cheered up. You might say, "Yeah, that's great." So it's not just you that should be doing the talking. Allow yourself to listen to someone else's approach, because if you give them a chance to talk, and if you give yourself a chance to listen, then in some ways you might be uplifted, and you might see a new and very positive view of the world. Gemini. It's a day, Gemini, when you may be tempted to try too hard. I say that because Mercury is your ruler, and Mercury is currently making a decile aspect to Uranus, and so with Mercury making a decile aspect to Uranus, this may be about the kind of style that you're trying to create, and you may be trying very hard to be original and to say things that are different, to say things that maybe get people to sit up and listen. I suppose Geminis like to feel that they're special, that they're unique. I'm a Gemini. I sometimes fall into that trap. I like to think that as I grow older, I'm sort of less prone to think that I'm special, but it can be a Gemini trap. To have that sort of arrogance where you think you're great, where you think you've got something really special to offer, particularly in terms of ideas. And yes, if you try too hard, you might actually come over as being a bit of an idiot. I mean, that is a possibility. So if you feel that you've got something original to contribute, then do consider the presentation. How are you going to present it? And also, are your ideas as original and wonderful as you think they are? It may be, Gemini, that you think you've discovered something special, but in fact everyone knows about it. I mean, remember, Gemini, there is nothing new under the sun. Nothing has been said that hasn't been said before. So if you're trying to be clever, maybe trying to be clever with words, it's like on the internet, people like to recycle quotations. They find this great quotation and they think it's really amazing, and they want to tell everyone about this quotation. They want to plaster it around the internet, and in fact everyone knows that quotation. It's completely hackneyed, and indeed it's quite possible the quotation is a misattribution. That's always possible with internet quotations. Mark Twain was supposed to have said it, or Einstein was supposed to have said it, but of course if you do the research you find they didn't say it. So it's going to be very difficult to be original, much more difficult than you realize. And it may be, Gemini, that you shouldn't try too hard to be different, and you perhaps need to accept that other people are special and not just you. And then you can look at the day and you can say, well, what actually has to be accomplished today? It's not just about trying to stand out. It's about trying to make sure that everything adds up. The sums need to add up today. And I'm thinking particularly of expenditure. Because, the moon is in Cancer, and when the moon is in Cancer, it from a Gemini perspective, that can often relate to money, and today there is a square aspect between the Moon and Mercury, because Mercury is your ruler. And so when you've got Moon square Mercury, and you're a Gemini and Moon is in Cancer, that can suggest that you have a few concerns about finances. You're thinking about whether the books really balance, and if you're sensible, that is. If you're not sensible, there may be a temptation to overspend, because Mercury is in Aries. Remember, Mercury is in Aries. Mercury is your ruler, and because it's in Aries, there is a certain tendency to impulsiveness. And so with Moon square Mercury, that could be financial impulsiveness if you are not careful. So do watch out for that. As far as what is positive today, what is the area that you should be really focusing on, where you can really benefit? One point about work, if you happen to be working today, and it applies to tomorrow really as well, that the Sun is starting to leave Pisces, and from a Gemini perspective, Pisces is quite a high profile. It's quite a high profile sign, and so as the Sun starts to leave Pisces, you may feel that there's a bit of a transition going on in terms of your work, or indeed your attitude to your work. And by work, I'm not necessarily even talking about paid employment. It may be something you're doing voluntarily. It's something you're doing with other people in a collective sense. And so with the Sun starting to move through Pisces, very late Pisces, there may be a few moments of questioning where you start to ask yourself, why are you doing what you're doing? Okay, you understand the situation, you understand the way it is, but is it right? And you may come to the conclusion that it's not entirely right, that something is not as it should be. And also the Sun is making this conjunction to Neptune. Sure, the conjunction to Neptune was technically yesterday, Sunday, but that Sun-Neptune conjunction can be a sense of uncertainty. You may make decisions based on false information, it's also possible that you see the truth about something, and you perhaps realize that your attitude to work and career and getting ahead in society has in some respects had its day, and that you perhaps need to change your approach, and you need to perhaps start asking questions. Why are you doing what you're doing? And you may then feel that perhaps you need to change your priorities. Finally, Gemini, it's important that you do take advantage of some of the people around you. There's at least one person who really is on good form, and they are there for you. You probably won't notice them at first, but they are there. And if you give them a chance to make your life better, then indeed they can make your life better. So yeah, open your eyes, see what's available, and you are not the center of the universe, and there are other people out there who can really be of great assistance and I think assurance as well. Cancer. The moon continues to move through your sign, and really that is a good thing. The moon works very well in Cancer, and of course you are a Cancer, so you are feeling comfortable in quite a fundamental sense. whatever's going on around you, however difficult and chaotic it is, you know that if you just do things right, you're not going to run into trouble. And so it's actually quite an important day for trusting your instincts. I think if you trust your instincts, you won't come to any harm. And I say that to you because I think you understand what's going on. A lot of people today should perhaps avoid trusting their instincts because they're liable to, reach the wrong conclusions, but not you. I think in your case, you absolutely understand what's going on around you, and just don't let yourself be tempted off the path. And you're helped by the fact that the moon is super strong because it's in mutual reception with Jupiter by exaltation. The moon and Jupiter are in each other's exaltation signs. So you're not just strong, you're also quite fortunate. Arguably, Cancer, you're probably the most fortunate of the 12 signs today. So count your blessings. Things are good, at least in a relative sense. And at the same time, you can cut quite a powerful image. You are able to communicate with enormous force. There is an aspect which I haven't mentioned today, which probably should have mentioned, is the fact that Mercury is on the North Node. Mercury on the North Node is, where you should be going. And with Mercury is a planet about communication. And Cancer, there is certainly something that you need to say, and that's how that's what makes you different. A lot of people are talking nonsense today, but not you. You know what you're talking about, and if you've got something to say, then it's important that you say it. Of course, you have got to consider the situation. I don't want to encourage you to say something that gets you hurt or killed, for example. So I'm not suggesting you deal with you say inappropriate things to dangerous individuals, but in a normal sense, Cancer, you've got something to say, and I think today is the time to say it. And it can be said in quite a high-profile setting. If you have to make a speech, you get an opportunity to make a speech to a group of people. Fine, go for it. You'll make a very powerful impression. If you are working today, then I think you're going to have strong views, which you should communicate, because probably you're the person who understands what's going on. And if people are making mistakes, you know it, you can feel it. And if you don't say anything, people will continue to make mistakes. And that is something you can do. But it's not just something in a negative sense, stopping people from making mistakes. We also have to consider your ideas. Cancerians tend to have some great ideas, especially regarding business. Remember, Cancerians can be very effective business people. Elon Musk is a Cancerian, isn't he? Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great were Cancerians. Okay, I know they weren't business people, but just want to give you the idea that Cancerians can be special. And so your ideas about making money, getting business, doing business, you should let everyone know, unless it's something that is personal, it's something that needs to be kept secret. If you've got your own business, then your ideas for progressing with your business, really focus on them. You can come up with something quite amazing today. So overall, Cancerian, So overall Cancer, I'm actually quite optimistic about today, and even close relationships should be working okay. I mean, the moon is in Cancer, and it's making a trine to Saturn. So from a Cancerian perspective, Saturn rules Capricorn, your opposite sign. So when the moon is trine Saturn, that indicates that you and someone else can get on extremely well, and not just in a boring and routine way. You and someone else can develop new connections, which may actually be quite exciting, and there may be sort of new projects and new plans that you and someone else can work on. Leo, the Sun is conjunct Neptune, Leo, and the Sun is your ruler. The Sun was exactly conjunct Neptune yesterday, but the Sun is still conjunct Neptune. And the Sun is your ruler. Neptune is a planet that can be quite difficult. It can be quite a confusing influence, and you may not entirely be sure what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think that the fundamental basis for your action is probably going to be your own feelings. The way you feel about something. And I'm not convinced that your own feelings can be entirely trusted. Yes, your feelings are very real and they're very powerful and they need to be respected. But, Leo, you are a fire sign. And all things being equal, the emotional side of things is not your main strength. And so if you spend a lot of time brooding, which you might, and you come to conclusions based on your brooding, then there's a good chance that your conclusions are just completely erroneous. So do consider that. And if you were to act on the basis of your feelings alone, Leo, then I think you could be heading for disaster. Or at least an unfortunate and regrettable situation. So what do you do about that? Well, it's not really a big problem, Leo. I think that all you need to do today is, and I think tomorrow as well, is just be patient. You're at an intersection at the moment. Things are changing. Things are changing for the better, but you haven't made that change yet. The moon is in Cancer. It doesn't go into Leo until tomorrow. It's a question of waiting it out. The Sun is in Pisces. It will go into Aries late Tuesday if you're in the Americas, Wednesday if you're the rest of the world. Those are important sign changes coming up, but they haven't happened yet. And if you were to take action before those two sign changes, then you would be acting too early, and you would be acting on the basis of information that may be wrong and impulses that you haven't really thought through. So my recommendation to you, Leo, would be, if you're brooding, fine, just keep brooding. But just don't act on your brooding. Don't assume that the conclusions you're coming to right now are correct. And if you're being told something, don't necessarily believe it. You might like to believe it. It might make you feel more comfortable to believe it. But if you do, you really would be setting yourself up for a fall. So just keep observing, keep feeling. You're picking up a load of information at the moment at an emotional level. Just let the information come in. Just watch the information. Watch your own impressions without reaching a conclusion. And then, in a day or two's time, things will become a lot clearer, and you will be ready to take action. And I should say, regarding people, I would have said that many of the people around you are all over the place, and I really don't think that they can be trusted. I mean, I'm not saying everyone is untrustworthy. I'm not even saying that most people are untrustworthy. I think you have to consider that possibility, and people can be untrustworthy temporarily. Someone may be totally trustworthy, except they might be untrustworthy on 1 or 2 days. And today might be the day when someone who usually gives good advice gives bad advice. So be open to that possibility. And really, Leo, don't do it. Wait. Be patient. And that's really all there is to be said. Virgo, you are in quite a good place, I would have said, at the moment. You have a fairly clear sense of what you want to do and where you are going. And I think that ideally today you're going to be fairly self-sufficient. I'm saying this actually to quite a lot of people, self-sufficiency. Why? Because there's a lot of delusion and deception around, and if we can be self-sufficient, we are in a way protecting ourselves from it. And you today, you have a clear sense, I think, of what can go wrong. And because you have a sense of what can go wrong, you're in a better position to be able to protect yourself. You understand, Virgo, that things are complicated. And today, Mercury, your ruler, is making a conjunction to the North Node in Aries. Now, that is arguably quite fortunate, Mercury being conjunct the North Node, because the North Node is traditionally of the nature of Jupiter. The South Node is traditionally of the nature of Saturn. Traditionally, it's a fortunate point. In a more modern sense, the North Node has been about our direction forward, what we should be doing, but the direction we should be taking. And with Mercury on the North Node, you are in a position where you actually can make the right choices. And so you make these right choices by listening to yourself, not by listening to other people. And Mercury being in Aries is about you really focusing on the power of your own feelings and experiences. You can feel it, and you know what's right. And in the process, it's going to be very important that you do not listen to other people. It's you're the one who should be making the decisions. You're the one who has the capacity to be self-sufficient. Now, the problem today is the conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. So that conjunction between the Sun and Neptune was actually exact yesterday, Sunday, but it's still in force. And that Sun-Neptune conjunction is taking place in Pisces, and Pisces is your opposite sign. And so Sun conjunct Neptune in Pisces from a Virgo perspective can represent someone who is leading you up the garden path, who is confusing you. Hence, the importance, Virgo, of being self-sufficient. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you have to totally remove yourself from the social world. The moon is moving through Cancer in a very sociable part of your chart, and the moon is in mutual reception by exaltation with Jupiter. So there are some interesting people around. So by all means, be in touch with them. Listen to what they've got to say. But just don't take them too seriously. People are there, for amusement, perhaps for enlightenment, but they're not there to help you make up your mind. The only person who can make up their mind is you. You're the one who has to make the decisions. And Virgo, if you have a strong sense of your own power, and the important things happen on your terms and on no one else's terms, then you will be acting correctly, and I don't think that things will go wrong. Libra, you are trying to balance your desire to make headway. I think headway is important for you today. I think that you understand, Libra, that there are things you want to do, there are things you want to achieve. And today I'm confident that you can make excellent progress. But I can also see why you might not make progress. So where would the problem be? Well, when I've gone through my interpretations for the 12 signs as I'm going through them, I've constantly warned people about trust and trusting other people. And I would have possibly given you the same warning. But it's not really about trust. It's about irritation and conflict. Being irritated by someone, you think you know you're going where you're going, and then you find that no, you get resistance. Perhaps someone tells you that you're actually going in the wrong direction. Now, it is possible that there is some truth in that. It is good that you have a clear sense of what you should be doing, but you do have to listen to other people. There's at least one other person you have to listen to. Now, that doesn't mean to say that this other person is right, and that doesn't mean to say that you should. That doesn't mean to say that you should waste a lot of time listening. But you've got to go through the motions of listening, and I say that because there is a conjunction between Mercury and the North Node in Aries. And from a Libra perspective, Aries represents the other, and the North Node represents perhaps the right thing to do. So Mercury conjunct North Node in Aries means someone's talking, someone perhaps is complaining, and you have to take that on board. Now, it may be if someone is complaining and is making a lot of noise, just by going through the process of listening to them, you're just showing some respect. and after that they will just keep quiet, and then you can get on with it. But it may be that someone makes not a fundamental criticism, but one small criticism about one detail of what you're trying to achieve. And in that case, they may be doing you a favour. You may have, broadly speaking, understood what you should be doing, how you should be progressing, but there may be just one detail that you've missed out on. And by integrating that detail, you'll be putting yourself in a great position for short-term success. And I've just talked about how you deal with other people's criticism. What about you? What about your influence? Actually, today, Libra, if you want, you can be very influential, and you can be quite manipulative with your words. You'll be able to get people to change their minds about things. You'll have lots of clever arguments, and you could actually be quite dangerous, because you might actually almost enjoy getting people to change their minds, getting people to see your point of view. Particularly if you're a Libra who who's naturally got away with words. Many Librans have got away with words, but your understanding of the facts is good, and you're able to use the facts to manipulate some of the people around you. Even if you don't know many facts, you can put the few facts you know, you can put to good use. I think you therefore have to be a little careful here from a moral perspective. You can get your way, but what is the price of getting your way? But still, if you're in a position where you have to persuade someone to do something, or perhaps, let's say, you are going to an interview, the way you handle yourself verbally is going to be very good. And you will seem very sure of yourself, and that's good. And if you want to be really persuasive, if you want to really have a big influence, you have to also take into account that Mercury conjunct North Node I was talking about. What that means is you express your arguments. You are manipulative, but you take some time to listen. People want to be listened to. And if you want to influence people, then listen to them as well as just talking to them. Because by listening to them, you are making them feel that you are taking them seriously. And you are also understanding their point of view. And once you understand someone's point of view, you are in a better position to be manipulative for better or for worse. Scorpio. I think, Scorpio, it's going to be a day when you need to get some space. You need to get away from enclosed spaces. I mean, I know Scorpios can sometimes get caught up in enclosed spaces. They sometimes like to lie low, don't they, Scorpions? Snakes under a rock, but that's not the approach. And I think, when we think of Aleister Crowley's division of the Scorpions, of Scorpios, you've got the eagle Scorpios, the snake Scorpios, and the scorpion Scorpios. Those are the three animals one can associate with Scorpio, according to Crowley. And the animal you should be thinking of today is very much the eagle. It's about rising above things. That that's just so important. If you are stuck with your own introspections, worrying about the world and its problems and thinking there's no way out, that's not the right approach. If you're able to be the eagle and to soar above this miserable world we're all living in, then you'll be able to see things in a new way. And I think you'll start to become aware of new opportunities. And I think you'll also see that the social environment in which you're living in is not quite as bad as you thought it was. I mean, after all, Jupiter is moving through Taurus, your opposite sign. It's actually been moving through Taurus for quite a long time, for nearly a year. I think Jupiter moved into Taurus last May, and the moon is making a sextile to Jupiter, and I think that there are certain people who can help you in your quest to escape the mundane reality and the grime of the everyday world. Perhaps they're going to show, support and enthusiasm, and then that's what you need. You want to be in touch with people who are realistic, but also optimistic. Got to get that balance right. People who are just negative for the sake of being negative should be avoided. You wouldn't really be able to deal with them, and they would drag you down. So consider your human resources, the people around you. Consider which people you need to take you on, to join you on your journey, because there is a sense of a journey today, a journey of exploration and discovery. And of course, journeys of exploration and discovery, you don't actually need to go anywhere. You don't need to fly anywhere. You don't need to create a massive carbon footprint. No, you can just have that journey right where you are. It is possible. Now, I'm not saying that today is entirely uncomplicated. There is a conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. This conjunction between Sun and Neptune could be deceptive. For certain Scorpios, it might encourage you to get involved in something which is beneath you. So, when you're the eagle soaring above everything, consider what you're getting involved in. Does it elevate you or does it reduce you? There will be temptations to get involved in things which reduce you, and that's not what the eagle should involve itself in. So there will be temptations to reduce you, and you may see these temptations if you're working today, because at work, if you're working, then there may be things going on which you are not entirely comfortable with, that just don't feel right. And if they don't feel right, then they aren't right. So it may be that you have to draw a few lines, or you may even have to tell people at work that they're being unreasonable. And it's not just at work; it's in the whole way you negotiate with wider society. There are a couple of things that just aren't right, and it's down to you to do something about it. Or if you can't do anything about it, you really shouldn't get involved. So that's the overall picture. I don't think there's anything more to be said. I suppose everyone wants to know about relationships. Well, I think I've already said what I need to say about relationships. make the right choice. There are people out there who you can have very valuable connections with, who can really support you in your journey. And so consider, is someone supporting you in your journey? If they are supporting you with your journey, then be with them, make the most of their company. At the same time, some people are not supportive, they're being negative, and really you don't have to have anything to do with them. Sagittarius, you're not in a bad position, although at first you might think that things could be better. You know, as a Sagittarius, you probably put a high premium on excitement. You want things to happen, and at first you might feel that things are a little tedious, but that would be because you're not giving anyone a chance. Reality is you are in a strong position today. And I think that your strength is all about knowledge. You know how it's all working. And right now you can see under the surface. I mean, when you see under the surface, you can see that there are a lot of things that are rotten. But we're not talking about your surface. I'm talking about the world in general, the society in which you live. Yeah, you can see the rot. You can see where it could go wrong, where indeed in many cases it will go wrong. But you have that knowledge, and that does put you in a very strong position, because it means you're unlikely to make mistakes. And it is a day when a lot of people are making mistakes. But I don't think that's you. I think you just have a natural intuitive understanding of the way things are running. And that intuitive understanding enables you to make the right choices. And I think that you'll realize that part of the right choices is part of making the right choices, making sure that the facts and the details are absolutely clear and absolutely in order. And I think that is something you're going to want to do today. You're going to want to make sure that anything blocking your view is cleared. That if you're tripping up over literal or metaphorical garbage, you're able to sort that garbage out. That everything is clear, everything is clean, and you're not going to want things in your life that are irrelevant and confusing. And I think you'll be quite good at removing that stuff. And I suppose that does relate to other people. There are certain people who are really of little or no value to you. And you may make that realization today. It becomes clear that certain people are just not helping. They're not taking you in the right direction. But there's at least one person who is taking you in the right direction. After all, the North Node is conjunct Mercury. Mercury is ruler of Sagittarius, your opposite sign. So with North Node conjunct Mercury, part of your way forward today is about interacting with one other person. I think it's one other person. I don't think it's lots of other people, but it's a person who is, I think, very creative. Someone who doesn't mince their words, someone who is completely honest. That's the kind of person you should be dealing with today. Yeah, people who are uncomplicated and honest. It may not just be one person, but if someone is uncomplicated and honest, they are good for you. And it's not a time for being offended. because honesty is the number one thing. That today is the thing that needs to be valued, and in the process, someone's honesty can help you make the most of your creative potential. And that's certainly another thing that you have to do. Your creativity is on show, or should be on show, and you're in a position where you can really show people what you can do. And if they're the right people, I think they're going to be very impressed. And when it comes to relationships, I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic. It's just that you have to allow people to be honest. Relationships today can't work if there's too much secrecy. Honest people help move you on. Capricorn. The moon continues moving through Cancer, and of course from a Capricorn perspective, Cancer is your opposite sign. So you can't entirely avoid the outside world, especially as the moon, while moving through Cancer, is making a trine to Saturn. And Saturn is your ruler. It rules Capricorn. So moon trine Saturn represents good connections between you and another person. Just a free flow of emotions, of words as well. You just naturally get on with someone. And so I think there are particular one-to-one relations today which can work out really well. And in the process, you have to allow someone else to be themselves. And it's not a day when you should be trying to sort of influence anyone. Indeed, it may be that you should allow yourself to be influenced, or at least you can hear what someone else has got to offer. Okay, you don't have to be completely persuaded, but maybe someone else should be allowed to take the initiative, to come up with the ideas. Give them a fair hearing. I think that is going to be very important. But Capricorn, I do think that your best work is going to be done when you are alone, or at least when you're in an uncrowded environment. That is the direction for you right now. You have some great ideas at the moment, and if you are alone and you're undisturbed, those ideas can really start to germinate, and you can do some amazing things with them. And you've got to give yourself a chance for those ideas to develop. On the other hand, if you are in a sort of crowded environment where there's lots of pressure, lots of phone calls, lots of people to deal with, then unfortunately all your ideas are going to come to nothing. I mean, the ideas may never see the light of day because they're just crowded out by trivia. So do give yourself the space to have ideas, the space to work on your plans. Because some of those plans, some of those ideas really are important, and they need to be worked on in a very sort of private space. We're talking about the seeds of things that really need to develop in the darkness, and it's therefore important that, just a couple of hours today, you just need time to work on whatever you need to work on. Yes, there will be pressure from the outside world, perhaps from another person. But I think if that person is good for you, they will have respect for you. And as I've said today, with the moon moving through Cancer, you can't ignore the outside world, and there are certain people you can't ignore, but you do have to get the balance right. You have to make sure that you give someone else enough of your time, but you also need to give yourself enough of your time. And once you've worked through your ideas, it may be then you can consider sharing them a bit and getting some feedback. But first of all, you've got to do the groundwork. You've got to make sure that you have got your facts right before seeing what another person has to say. Aquarius, it's a day when you may feel that things are changing. I suppose it's a Monday, and I suppose people often think this, when it's a Monday new week. I don't know, it depends when you think the week starts. I know a lot of people think the week starts on Sunday, but as far as I'm concerned, the week starts on a Monday. And Aquarius, you can feel that some of the people you have to deal with are not quite their normal selves. They are distracted, and they don't seem ready to really do anything or to take the initiative, and they're not going to make commitments. And I think that's something you just need to accept, because there are some sign changes about to take place. Mars, for example, is in the last few degrees of your sign. I think at the end of a week, actually, Mars leaves Aquarius, moves into Pisces. Likewise with the Sun, and the Sun is a planet. I know it's not a planet; it's a star, but I call it a planet out of convenience. The Sun is going to leave Pisces and move into Aries very soon. Tuesday evening or Wednesday, Sun moves into Aries, and that's important from an Aquarian perspective, because the Sun rules Leo, your opposite sign, and so that's perhaps why you can see that some people are just rather indecisive. They're not ready to make decisions because they are in a process of change, and I think that that is something you should just accept. And so what do you do? Well, I think you work on yourself today. I don't think there's anything that needs to be done in terms of engaging with the world out there. I think, Aquarius, there are things that need to be organized, and these things may be of quite a boring, routine, maybe financial nature. They just have to be got out of the way. They're still perhaps hanging over from a weekend, and now's the time to do it. And I think actually you will be quite successful in terms of organizing things, provided that you are not distracted. There could be some distractions, Aquarius. Reason being that Saturn is your ruler, because Saturn rules Aquarius, and it is aspecting the Mars-Neptune midpoint. Now, Mars-Neptune is basically the principle of going in the wrong direction, being attracted by things which are dangerous, they look attractive, they're enticing. But just because something is attractive and enticing doesn't mean you should follow it. And at the moment, Aquarius, some Aquarians, probably not most Aquarians needn't worry about it, but a few Aquarians might be attracted by something that is actually dangerous. You're doing something, you think you've sorted everything out, you're being very sensible, but then you see something and you're thinking, wow, that's interesting. But, curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity killed the water carrier. So don't let your curiosity get the better of you. Curiosity is your enemy today. And I know that's a bad thing to say. I mean, we always think curiosity is supposed to be good. It makes life more interesting. Curiosity, a curious mind, all that kind of thing. But today, Aquarius, I would advise you not to be curious. Particularly if that curiosity is leading you in a clear direction. You get curious about something, you ask questions about it, you put more and more resources into it, you in the end start changing your plans, and then, Aquarius, you'll be in real trouble. But I suspect in most cases this isn't going to be an issue. You're going to understand what needs to be done, and you will do it with great sort of great vigor and conscientiousness. And when the planets change sign, when the sun moves out of Pisces into Aries, and indeed moving to the end of a week, when Mars moves out of Aquarius and goes into Pisces, you'll be well prepared. And so I haven't said much today, but I think the overall picture is pretty clear. Pisces. Yesterday, the Sun made a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces, in the last few degrees of Pisces. And this conjunction is still active today. I mean, so much so that later in this video, I'm going to be talking about Sun conjunct Neptune. And with Sun conjunct Neptune, you continue to have the capacity to make simple things overly complicated and overly confusing. You're supposed to be a force for good, Pisces. But, today you could be a force for, I won't say a force for bad, but I'll say a dangerous force. You could lead people astray. You could focus on the wrong details. You might be very convincing in the way you focus on the wrong details, and you could waste a lot of time, and waste not just your time, but other people's time. So do have a sense of proportion, and do consider that some of the things you think are really important are actually irrelevant. So bear that in mind, Pisces. But I'm not saying it's going to be a bad day. It needn't be a bad day. I mean, the moon is moving through Cancer. In fact, the moon moving through Cancer is making a sextile to Jupiter. And Jupiter's your ruler, and the moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception by exaltation. So with the moon in mutual reception by exaltation with Jupiter, which is your ruler, then I think we can say that there are plenty of opportunities to have a great day. But you've got to do things right. I think, Pisces, it's about being genuine, and it's about being very real. Jupiter's in Taurus. Your ruler is in Taurus. Taurus is a sign about stability. not messing around with sort of deep underground concepts. Just, it is what it is. And if you can do that, focus on what is in front of you, what you can touch, then I think you'll be able to make the most of everything that's on offer. And Pisces, I think also it would be a very good day if you could concentrate on your own creative ability. And creativity, as I always say, is a solo effort. Creativity is not a joint venture. And you don't have to persuade anyone that your way of being creative is the right way of being creative. It doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be explained. And so ideally, Pisces, you will be creative in your own way. There's no correct way to be creative. Certainly you can't ask other people what the best way to be creative is, because they don't know. Creativity might work for them, but so you have to think, Pisces, what's the one thing you're really good at, the thing you're best at, and then today probably give it everything you've got. And with Moon sextile Jupiter, it should work out extremely well. Finally, I should talk a little bit about relationships. And I just wanted to point out that Mercury is making a conjunction to the North Node today. And this conjunction is in a section of your horoscope that is often connected with money and material details, and it contrasts with the South Node in Libra, which from your perspective may be about things that are complicated. And it's telling you that you need to be with people who keep things simple, who are simple and direct. Those are the people who can benefit you. You don't want to hang out with people who are complicated, who are particularly emotionally complicated. And if you hang out with people who are simple and direct, then you will get good advice. So do consider your social environment, and don't stay away from someone just because you're worried that they might criticize you. Or, maybe they've criticized you in the past. And maybe that person's criticisms have actually been valid. In fact, if you find yourself being questioned and being at the receiving end of constructive criticism, that's a good sign. That really does show that you are on the right track. So those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. Before I do the I Ching, I want to quickly cover something that I have missed, which I have been referring to in my readings for the 12 signs. And something I forgot to say in my introduction was that Mercury is conjunct the North Node. And I know it affects the 12 signs in different ways, but it is an important part of the overall picture for today, the fact that Mercury is conjunct the North Node, for all of us. So if Mercury is conjunct the North Node in Aries, I think that we should all try to be as direct as possible. Mercury is in Aries, it says what's on its mind. And so Mercury conjunct the North Node means that is the right thing to be doing, because the North Node represents where we should be going to. South Node represents where we're coming from. And there's a lot of stuff that's confusing today with Sun, particularly with this Sun conjunct Neptune. I know that the Sun conjunct Neptune was exact yesterday, but there's a lot of confusing stuff. So how do we actually deal with the confusion? How do we cut through the confusion? And I think we cut through the confusion through that Mercury conjunct the North Node. We are living in a world where, which is basically full of lies. We can tell lies everywhere. Governments lie, distortions, propaganda, news that is, I hate to say this, but I know it's the old cliche, fake news. A lot of it is fake, it really is. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago, but how things have changed. How do you get around this confusion? You get around this confusion by being direct. Mercury in Aries conjunct the North Node. You just ask the questions, you come out with it. If something sounds wrong, you just say, I don't believe you. That's wrong. Explain yourself. What are the real facts? And it might be a bit rude being like that, but Mercury is conjunct the North Node in Aries. It's all about being direct. And if we are direct and we're not afraid of asking questions, then we can cut through the confusion and maybe for ourselves come to some approximation of the truth. And also we can help move things along. So that's what I wanted to say about Mercury conjunct the North Node in Aries. I think it's important. Okay, having done that, I want to now turn to the I Ching. And so I asked the question, what is Monday going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 54, the marrying maiden. So the marrying maiden is about having the inclination to be involved in something. I mean, literally, it's about a woman who wants to get married, and will do anything to get married. She's going to give herself away quickly. But there is, with this hexagram, a feeling that it's all a bit too fast, a bit too impulsive, and the hexagram does relate to relationships, how we are relating, and whether we are in the right relationship. And there are alternative views about what this hexagram might actually mean. One view relates to the eye. There is a sense in which the I Ching sees this as being about being half blind, because we have a moving line. The second line from the bottom moves, and so that is about being half blind. Not literally half blind, but half blind as in not seeing the full picture. And it can relate to a relationship that is there, it's in existence, but it's not properly working. One eye is blind. And about being in a relationship, but at the same time being lonely within a relationship, because the other person doesn't fully understand you. So that in that case, the marrying maiden, she can only see through one eye, and she's in a relationship and just trying to make it better, trying to go through the motions, but it's just not really working. Now, I understand this is an I Ching reading just for one day, so don't take it to heart. But if you are in a relationship today, I'm not talking anything necessarily a romantic relationship, any form of one-to-one relationship, you may feel that the other person is not really pulling their weight. They're not giving you what you need, and you're having to do all the work. Another alternative approach would be if you are not in a relationship and you're going to feel that you want to be with people. Maybe you're going to feel that you're going to want to be with another person. And in that case, the advice would be, don't get involved. Don't get married. It's not going to be helpful to get involved with other people in whatever this relationship you're thinking about. And I'm thinking about something quite temporary because it's a one-day reading. So don't feel you have to be close to people if you're not. I know you want to be close to people. There are certain people you want to be with, but it's probably not going to work out, and is probably inadvisable to get too close, because you can't see out of one eye. With one eye you can't see out of. And I suppose that links with the fact that today there's a conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. And if you listen to my reading, my forecasts of the 12 signs, I have consistently suggested that we are very careful about who we get involved with, and that people can't necessarily be trusted. And so that sort of links with this hexagram. Now, this hexagram, the marrying maiden, it does move. And it moves to hexagram 51, which is thunderbolts. The Wilhelm translation, I think, translates it as the arousing, but I think thunderbolts is kind of more appropriate. It's about something suddenly happening, thunder. It is dramatic, and on the surface it might seem something quite negative, but in fact it is positive, because the I Ching talks about the sacrificial spoon. You don't spill the sacrifice. The incense is not spilt. So although there is a big shock, what we are fundamentally trying to do, like make a sacrifice or put incense on the fires or whatever, we don't spill any. So despite the shock, we can hold firm. And so this sense of unsatisfaction that we have been feeling, I think in many cases with other people, wanting to be close to other people, but we can't be close to other people. And even if we're with other people, we feel they're not giving us what we want. We feel alone. The situation is changed by a surprising turn of events, something we weren't expecting. At first we think it's bad, but in fact it turns out to be actually very positive. And that perhaps it's through this surprising turn of events that the issues of the marrying maiden are sort of feelings of loneliness and having sort of only be able to see out of one eye. Suddenly we can see out of both eyes, and this event will turn out, I think, to be very fortunate, and it will help to just move us along. Now I want to turn back to the astrology and consider the conjunction between the Sun and Neptune. So from a traditional perspective, what would it mean to have the Sun conjunct Neptune? Well, from a positive perspective, you might see the Sun conjunct Neptune as being very sensitive. I mean, people get into astrology very often because they're into spirituality. They're into the supernatural, they're into the human potential movement. They want to move beyond their everyday existence. And so they see Sun conjunct Neptune and they think, oh, well, that's great. Sun conjunct Neptune, that's exciting. But that might be true if we're a sort of elevated person. If if we are a very wise person with Sun conjunct Neptune, then we have access to sort of high-level forces, and that in itself boosts our wisdom, and it allows us to tune into our spirituality. Reality is that, all things being equal, Sun conjunct Neptune is probably not a fortunate aspect. I mean, Neptune does have a malefic nature. It can be confusing and it can be deceptive. And if we have Sun conjunct Neptune, there's the capacity, I think, to make mistakes. Neptune can also be about a philosophy or an ideology, and we might get caught up in an ideology and that might take us in the wrong direction. The Sun can also be about the father, and it can say something about what our relationship is like with our father, and it can be quite a confusing relationship. Particularly in a female chart, the Sun is likely to be projected, and can say something about the men in a woman's life, whether it's be the father, partner, son, whoever the important men are, because it could be an employer. And so Sun conjunct Neptune can represent a sense of confusion about that, a sense of perhaps being deceived. So that is something to consider. And so when I look at the horoscopes, a few Sun conjunct Neptune horoscopes, I want you to bear that in mind. And I don't think in any of these horoscopes I'm looking at, we can say that the Sun conjunct Neptune is entirely fortunate. So who shall I start with? I'm going to start with an extreme example. Helga Goebbels. I've looked at her chart before. Helga Goebbels was the daughter of Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, and his wife Magda, and she was born on September the 1st, 1932. And she was their eldest child, and apparently she got on, her father adored her, and she didn't have such a good relationship with her mother. And as it happened, she had the parents from hell. And on May the 1st, 1945, her parents murdered her. Specifically, her mother, with the aid of an SS doctor, killed her. Because they all wanted to die. And then, of course, her parents committed suicide after they'd killed their 4 or 5 children. And 4 children? I think they had 4 children. And she was the oldest child, and she was the one that knew what was happening. There was a plan. Joseph and Magda Goebbels. They weren't going to escape Berlin. Magda Goebbels, they had a chance, but they wanted to die. The whole family was going to die as the Russians closed in. There are apparently evidence that she struggled because they forced cyanide into her mouth. And she has the Sun conjunct Neptune. So Sun conjunct Neptune, firstly, may say something about the father. Her father may have been deceptive in some ways. She might have put her father on a pedestal. That's possible. I think she was much closer to her father than she was to her mother. But Neptune is also a universal significator of poison. So someone with Sun conjunct Neptune being a victim of poisoning would sort of make sense. But this Sun conjunct Neptune was linked up with the Mars-Saturn opposition. So you will see that Helga Goebbels had a Mars-Saturn opposition in her chart. Now you could say, well, it's a very wide Mars-Saturn opposition. Mars is at 18 Cancer. Saturn is at 28 Capricorn. So in fact, Mars and Saturn are over 10 degrees. I mean, normally in modern Western astrology, 10 degrees is just over the top. You can't really count that as being you can't really count that as being in awe. But then we have to think, well, what is the midpoint? So the midpoint of Mars and Neptune, if it's 10 degrees, it's going to be 5. It's going to be at about 23 degrees. So you can see that she has got Uranus exactly on her Mars. She's got Uranus on her Mars-Saturn midpoint. So Mars and Saturn together can be about death. In this case, it is, I think, almost certainly about death. Living in an atmosphere of death. The last part of her life was spent living in the bunker as the Russians were closing in on Berlin, with parents who refused to evacuate their children out. And so Uranus is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. But then look at Sun-Neptune. Sun and Neptune are sesquiquadrate Uranus. And I must emphasize the Uranus-Neptune, the semi-squares are really important. The 45 degree, 135 degree aspects are just as important as conjunctions, squares, and oppositions. More important from trines and sextiles, particularly if they're close. And so she has Uranus. There's Uranus, 2256 Aries, and her Neptune is at 747 Virgo. In other words, she's got Neptune exactly sesquiquadrate her Uranus within less than 10 degree orb. And as Ebertin says, Uranus sesquiquadrate Neptune, elimination of the waking consciousness. And that's her, I suppose you could say, having cyanide forced down her throat, forced through her teeth, and she's trying, there were bruises on her body. Apparently she was trying to resist it. But that Neptune is on her Mars-Saturn midpoint, because Uranus is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, but she's also got the Sun and Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. And so Neptune on the Mars-Saturn midpoint is death by poisoning, and you throw Sun and Mars, you throw Sun onto that as well, and you get the picture. So in Helga Goebbels' case, I think you could say that the Sun-Neptune conjunction is about a dreadful relationship with her parents, having delusions about her father, and because that Sun-Neptune conjunction, both planets are on the Mars-Saturn conjunction, on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, it's in the end saying something about the nature of her death, because she was killed with cyanide. So that's Helga Goebbels. I want to look at another Second World War chart, or indeed just before the Second World War. And this is the horoscope of a man you might not have heard of, called David Frankfurter. So David Frankfurter was, don't have a time of birth for him. He was born on July the 9th, 1909 in Daruvar in Croatia. And he has, I don't know what time, but he had an exact Sun-Neptune conjunction. And he was Jewish, and he landed up in Switzerland. And so I think he was a student, and when he was in Switzerland, he found out about he was looking at what was going on politically, and he saw that there was this Swiss Nazi called Wilhelm Gustloff, and so David Frankfurter decided he was going to kill him, and so David Frankfurter had Sun conjunct Neptune in Cancer. And so, I don't know a great deal about David Frankfurter, but that Sun conjunct Neptune may say something about his ideology and how he approaches things. I mean, not everyone would. I mean, I can understand he might want to kill him, but I mean that seemed to be in the 1930s. This was before the Second World War. The Sun, Neptune in Cancer. I suppose Cancer, you could say, it's about his clan. It's about his people. Cancer, if he's Jewish, and getting quite offended about, as one should be, as he should have been offended, obviously, about this man with this anti-Semitic garbage that he was pushing out, and deciding it would be best to kill him. So that might be the fantasy of that Sun-Neptune conjunction. But this Sun-Neptune conjunction is square Saturn and opposition Uranus. So with Saturn and Uranus aspect hitting the Sun-Neptune conjunction, this may have encouraged him to actually do something about it. It's one thing to have fantasies about killing someone. It's another thing to actually go ahead and do it. And then on February the 4th, 1936, he went to Davos. Davos is, that's where the World Economic Forum meets, isn't it? Davos. He went to Davos, where this Wilhelm Gustloff lived, and he went into his office and he killed him. He shot him. I think he actually made a film about it, about the killing of Wilhelm Gustloff. And so what was going on when David Frankfurter assassinated Wilhelm Gustloff? On that day, the day of the assassination, there was a Mars-Neptune opposition. So Mars was at 16 Pisces, Neptune was at 16 Virgo, and David Frankfurter had a conjunction, a Sun-Neptune conjunction at 16 Cancer. So he had Neptune sextile his Sun-Neptune, his own natal Sun-Neptune. His transiting Neptune was sextile his own Sun-Neptune conjunction, and Mars, most importantly, was trine his Sun-Neptune conjunction. So Mars is obviously the planet of aggression, of the attack. And so Mars trine Sun, his Mars transiting Mars, trine his Sun-Neptune conjunction. That was when he decided to do it, and that fits, doesn't he? Mars trining his Sun-Neptune conjunction, he assassinates someone, he gets away with it, he does it, he kills him. Well, when I say gets away with it, he was arrested. Switzerland did not have the death penalty. He was I believe he was sentenced to life in prison. I mean, I think his family were wiped out in the Holocaust, as probably would have happened anyway. But in a way, by being sentenced into life in prison, he didn't go back to Croatia. He survived the Second World War, and at the end of the Second World War, he was released, and he went to Israel, and got a job in Israel and worked for, I think, the Israeli Defense Department, and so that was him. So it was I'm not, he was, he's considered to be a hero in Israel. I think in Switzerland he was considered to be. A lot of people in Switzerland were quite supportive of what he did. But that's how he worked with his Sun-Neptune conjunction. And in a way, that Sun-Neptune conjunction for him, you could say it worked out quite well, somehow. So another person who has got the Sun-Neptune conjunction, I don't really want to say very much about her, but Lucy Letby was this nurse who was convicted of killing a lot of babies. It should be said that she is appealing it. So I don't know. You must never. It's just because someone has been convicted of a murder, you shouldn't necessarily assume that she really did it. Miscarriages of justice do happen. I'm not expressing any opinion there, but she has Sun conjunct Neptune in Capricorn. She's got Chiron opposition the Sun, so there's a lot of, you could go on, you could look at that from a psychological perspective and trying to understand who she is. Of course, at the moment she's in prison, serving a life prison sentence, but she has Chiron opposition the Sun, and you could say that there are a lot of wounds there, and we don't know exactly where her moon is because I don't have a time of birth, but she has a moon in Aries square the Sun-Neptune conjunction, possibly, but her moon could be anywhere between 8 Aries and 20 Aries. I think her chart would make a lot more sense if we knew where her moon was, but if we took a midday chart and one's considering someone who has certainly been convicted of killing a lot of babies, you're trying to work out the psychological motivation, and I would have said it has something to do with that Sun conjunct Neptune. It must be something at a sort of a deep sort of psychological level, but I don't really want to go into any more detail about it. I just want to point out the fact that here is someone who's been sentenced to life in prison for she's a nurse for killing babies under her charge, and she has Sun conjunct Neptune opposition Chiron with the moon on the T. Someone else is the German foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock. I do look at her chart every now and then. I don't get it, to be honest. She's supposed to be a green, and she is a fanatical supporter of intervention in Germany intervening in Ukraine. I think when the German Parliament voted against sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine, she was sitting there shaking her head. She wanted Taurus missiles to be sent to Ukraine. I remember those German generals getting excited about or talking about destroying the Kerch Bridge. This woman is a green. I just don't get it. So she's a serious neocon, I suppose. And she's got the Sun conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius. I would guess that at some level this woman must be seriously deluded, and one perhaps wonders how she got to be so deluded. How did she move to being a green, to being a neocon, advocating actions that can cause Third World War, World War III, and she's got Sun Neptune. She must have got caught into some ideological fantasy with Sun conjunct Neptune that she really can't get out of. And I also wonder, if you take the Sun as being men, because it's likely to be projected, was she influenced by particular men she came across who turned her into someone who has completely monstrous, irresponsible political views, which are actually completely contradict what it is, at least my understanding of what it is to be green. She's got Sun-Neptune conjunction, and so what's happening at the moment for her? Now, I just want to look at her chart from a perspective of solar arc directions. So she's born on December the 15th, 1980. So she's I mean, she's young. I mean, she's only 43, and so in about 2 years' time, when she hits 45, her solar arc, every solar arc directed planet will be 45 degrees away from every other solar arc directed planet. But she's perhaps moving into that. But I did want to look at her solar arc directions for the moment. What is she experiencing? So remember, solar arc directions, you move everything by 1 degree for every year of life. So these are her solar arc directed planets, and I just want to compare. I wanted to compare this. I wanted to compare her chart with. So her solar arc. There's her solar arc. Sun Neptune. There's her Sun Neptune conjunction, and so we move this through by 43 degrees, and it's her solar arc directed Sun I'm interested in. So her solar arc directed Sun is at 741 Aquarius, and she has got her Neptune. Well, we don't know precisely because I don't know her time of birth. So her Neptune is at 2226 Sagittarius. So her solar arc directed Sun has just passed her Neptune. It's just making a semi-square to Neptune. Her solar arc directed Neptune is moving towards a semi-square of her Neptune. So her solar arc directed Sun-Neptune midpoint is semi-square her Neptune, and then is about to move onto her Sun. So from a solar arc perspective, her Sun-Neptune conjunction is really strong from a solar arc direction point of view, because solar arc directed Sun-Neptune midpoint is hitting her Neptune, and then it's soon going to hit her Sun. So really, really strong thing going on right now. Recently she's a year or two ago, she's had Neptune square her Sun. So this woman is completely confused. She doesn't know what she's doing with that solar arc directed Sun-Neptune conjunction. Totally at sea. And she's German foreign minister, and I think that is extremely worrying. Someone else who is connected with the West, war against Ukraine, is the British chief of the defence staff, who is Tony Radakin. He's chief of the defence staff, Admiral Tony Radakin. He was the First Lord of the Admiral. Was it First Lord of the Admiralty? Is that how it is? Head of Britain's Navy. Now he's chief of the defence staff, and he has Sun conjunct Neptune. So he's a sailor. He's an admiral. He's also a lawyer. He did a degree in law. But so I suppose you could say, if you've got Sun conjunct Neptune, you might be successful in the Navy, which is certainly the case for him. Sun and Neptune conjunction in Scorpio. Yes, he was done very well in the British Navy. That's great. But they're also with him, if you've got Sun Neptune conjunction, there is a capacity for being confused, getting the wrong idea, floating off on some ideology, or perhaps some imperial fantasy. And Tony Radakin has been very involved with planning, as far as I know, with planning NATO's war against Ukraine. I think he's advised Ukraine. I think he's very into the Black Sea and perhaps helping destroy Russian ships. He's an enthusiastic supporter of Britain's involvement in the war against Ukraine, and he's just had his Saturn return, his second Saturn return, and also from a solar arc direction perspective, Here are his solar arc directions. So he was born with a Uranus-Neptune conjunction. So from a solar arc directed perspective, his solar arc directed Uranus-Neptune he's born with a Uranus-Pluto conjunction, and his Uranus-Pluto conjunction by solar arc direction is now exactly on his Sun, and his Sun is, so I think he's going over the top here. He's just had his Saturn return. He's involved in a war against Russia, which the West is losing, which NATO is losing, and he's chief of a defense staff. Again, as with Annalena Baerbock, this is dangerous. You don't want someone like this who's having that kind of direction doing that. And that Uranus-Pluto conjunction in his natal chart is starting to move onto his Sun-Neptune midpoint. So plenty of scope here for him making mistakes. Let's see. I'm spending a bit too much time on this. I very quickly want to point out that Kevin Monahan, he was this man in New York who, a 20-year-old girl and his cars, they accidentally went into his drive, and as they were leaving, he decided to shoot them. He decided to open up with his shotgun, and he killed this 20-year-old girl. And he has a Sun-Neptune conjunction in Scorpio. I mean, lots of people have Sun-Neptunes in conjunctions in Scorpio, and it's kind of tied up with his Mercury, and he sort of made he made a terrible decision. He misunderstood the situation. He was probably deluded as well about his firearms, and his Sun-Neptune in Scorpio, perhaps his own sense of it was his territory. He took the view, and he had a gun. I suppose as soon as you have a gun, you start to have a particular view of your own territory, and he was getting annoyed and confused. And then, anyway, he ended up killing this girl, and has now been given a very long prison sentence. Finally, I want to talk about Kristi Noem, the governor of South Carolina, who has a Sun conjunct Neptune. Not an exact Sun-Neptune conjunction. It's 5 degrees apart. So we could see that in terms of her position as governor and governor of South Dakota, and perhaps you could say, if you were one of her political enemies, you might say that she's Sun, Neptune, Sagittarius. Sagittarius is can be quite an ideological sign. So she has some strong views. Sun in Sagittarius likes to make a lot of noise. She likes to troll liberals, and I think she had fantasies about what did she want to do. She wanted in Rushmore National Park. She wanted to have a firework display, even though it was completely illegal to use fireworks in I think I'm right in that, Rushmore National Park. And she tried to do it. She tried to get permission to use fireworks, but I don't think she was allowed to in the end. But that's maybe Sun, Neptune, and Sagittarius. But more fundamentally, it's about her life story. The Sun is about the father. It can be. And her father died in tragic circumstances in 1994. So she comes from a farming family, and her father died, I think, in a grain elevator. I think he was working in it, and he slipped, and he went into the grain, and apparently it is a relatively common accident for farmers with grain, if you're working with grain elevators, because I think you just literally drown in grain once you. I mean, I don't know anything about farming, but it sounds sort of completely catastrophic. So she was born in 1971, and this was the day her father died in Watertown, South Dakota. So she was young when this happened. She was into the early 20s, and it had a huge effect on her life. Suddenly, there was financial issues with the farm, which she goes on and on about it in terms of her biography. This is a very big part of her political story, about what impact her father's death had, and how the importance of self-reliance and having to deal with taxes and the tax implications of her father dying. And so having a Sun-Neptune conjunction, drowning in grain, this is literally saying how her father died. I don't have her time of birth, but that's how that Sun-Neptune conjunction. Neptune is about drowning, you could say, in one sense, and so that is certainly a possible manifestation of it. And look at her Neptune. Neptune is opposition Saturn, so she's got Sun opposition Saturn conjunct Neptune. So her Sun feeding into that Saturn-Neptune opposition, that surely would helps describe how her father died. So what was actually going on when she got the news? So with Kristi Noem, I'm not saying anything necessarily is happening, but if you look at Mars, so Mars was on the day of the death, of her father's death, Mars was at 2 degrees 35 Pisces, Saturn was at 454 Pisces. So Mars was exactly square her Neptune, and Saturn was on her Sun-Neptune midpoint. And I think those transits really do indicate that that is how Sun-Neptune conjunctions can work. They can be about the father. And in her case, it actually helps describe how her father died, and it's picked up by the transits. Remember, Mars-Saturn conjunction there was a Mars-Saturn conjunction when her father died. It wasn't an exact Mars-Saturn conjunction, but that Mars-Saturn conjunction by transit was hitting her Sun-Neptune conjunction. Remember, Mars square her Neptune exactly, and Saturn transiting Saturn on her Sun-Neptune midpoint. Anyway, that's it with the Sun-Neptune conjunction. I would have said, if you look at these charts, of course, these are charts that I have picked. These are charts that I have found interesting, so they are very biased. But using this biased selection, I would have said that we have grounds for thinking that, overall, the Sun-Neptune conjunction tends not to be fortunate. And I think we do have a number of ways, we have seen a number of ways in which the Sun-Neptune conjunction can work out. Obviously, the most disastrous case was Helga Goebbels, where it was, showing how she was killed by cyanide by her parents, and she has this disastrous father, and her mother was just as disastrous. Likewise with Kristi Noem, we can see that the Sun-Neptune conjunction is connected with the death of her father. I suppose from a positive perspective, we see Tony Radakin having a Sun-Neptune conjunction, and he is an extremely successful naval officer. But that Sun-Neptune conjunction towards the end of his career is now showing, I think, that he's getting involved in some disastrous decisions. One other thing about Tony Radakin, that okay, he's no longer in charge of a navy, he's moved on, but he's in charge of Britain's defence forces, and it's not just Britain's defence forces messing up in with this involvement in Ukraine, but it's also the aircraft carrier, the Queen Elizabeth II. There's been a fire on this aircraft carrier, and so we're perhaps having a man with Sun conjunct Neptune as chief of the defence staff. Well, that doesn't really bode well for Britain's defence forces, does it? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, I would be grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed and you enjoyed it, I'd be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.